There is no spying on Americans. We don't have a domestic spying program. I am quoting the President of the United States as he spoke to a usually reliable source of information, and where many Americans get their news. I'm speaking of Leno. I didn't actually see it because I was in bed, but I read the transcript, and those were the two assurances he gave us about the National Surveillance Agency. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. President, and with all due respect to someone I greatly admire and do trust, Pete King, I am in the skeptical camp. I remain skeptical because the President said a number of other things in this interview, which I encourage you all to read. He said, first of all, that the reason we need this program as it is in its current form is that after the Boston bombing, law enforcement needed to be able to see who the two Tsarnaev brothers were talking to, whether or not they had been speaking to anyone here in New York, for example. They wanted to roll up those people, get to those numbers quickly. What troubled me was the reference to after the Boston bombing. My supposition is that if the Tsarnaev brothers had been living in New York, there never would have been a bombing, because they would have been watched. Someone who had gone to Russia, who had a report from the Russians that he was being radicalized and in fact was a radical, would have had more than an FBI interview or two to satisfy the curiosity of the NYPD. Dealing with something and rounding up other people on cell phone numbers and emails after an event is not good counterterrorism work. I was also skeptical because he said he was talking to Congress about changes in the FISA program and in the FISA oversight system. He didn't actually say that he was willing to consider any or endorse any. And I think change, and here again I'm going to disagree with my friend Pete King, I think change is long overdue. There is no reason why the head of the Supreme Court should be appointing every justice on the FISA court, a court which has never turned down a request for information by the government. It has sent a couple back for amendment, for changes, but basically it's a rubber stamp. There's no reason why people on the Intelligence Committees, House and Senate, can't get summaries of the cases, and why we can't know more about the kinds of cases that are being brought to that court. I'm skeptical because I know that with the best of intentions, governments gradually accumulate power. And while I might trust Pete King and even President Obama to respect the balance between civil liberties and national security, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to trust the next president. That's why we have a Constitution and a Bill of Rights. And I'm speaking to you today as someone who considers herself a kind of national security hawk. I endorsed the Patriot Act. I thought we needed it. I think we still need to do more to protect American citizens. I don't think Guantanamo should be closed because I want to be able to take men like Abu Qatada, whom the administration announced with great fanfare has just been indicted a year later for Benghazi. I want to be able to take him somewhere that's not in the United States where I know he can be safeguarded for trial. The terrible thing about this indictment is that we don't have him. And now that we've indicted him, we are not likely to get him unless he has an unfortunate traffic accident in Libya, which could happen. But these are the problems with the way in which the President has approached national security. It is, as Pete King says, schizophrenic. Finally, I'm skeptical because I know firsthand the enormous power of the government when it turns and focuses on an individual. And I'm not speaking of having to go to jail to protect a source. I'm speaking of the search and the hunt and the subpoena and the ultimate delivery of my telephone records, home, office, cell, shortly after I got out of jail in connection with another case that the government was investigating. I know what it feels like to have everything looked at, and I don't think I posed any kind of threat to national security. So finally, I want to be assured that the Reuters story that said the Drug Enforcement Agency, which had requested and had gotten access to the NSA records, is not actually spying on me. I want to be sure that the New York Times story is not correct when it said that half a dozen other agencies had requested access to the national security metadata to pursue various crimes. I want to be sure that even if the NSA is not spying on me, another branch of government may be without sufficient oversight. And that's why I think the time has come for a look congressionally and in the public at this balance between what we do to stay safe and what we're doing to protect our civil liberties. And I welcome this debate, and I'm delighted and honored to be here with such esteemed panelists. Thank you.